से जुड़ी किसी भी छोटी या बड़ी अपडेट के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें स्पोर्ट्स तक और साथ ही किसी भी नोटिफिकेशन को पाने के लिए बेल आइकन को दबाना ना भूलें।
Before I begin the formal sort of phase of my duties today, just a few words on Mr. Dilip Sardesai. You're so right, Shishir. He had a glint in his eyes, not just by seeing me, seeing any young, talented cricketer. When you think of Dilip Sardesai, the face of Dilip Sardesai comes in front of you. Always very excited, big eyes, happy man. He loved being in that cricketing bubble. For a guy who was a cricketing stalwart, a big name India cricketer, had no ego. He was there on the Maidans, pushing us along. And it was amazing that we had the chance to be alongside such people at such a young age. His, performances at the selection trials are well documented, but at the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about his selection methods. He used to enjoy it. He used to turn up and feel very happy. It was like job satisfaction for him. Under 15 selector in the open Maidans, and it was open selection trials at that time. About 500 people would turn up. And the first day was about getting rid of the riff-raff sort of, people who were just taking a chance. So he used to tell few of us to be on the side and say, you just stay there, let me have a look at all these other people. And there were instances of some people not even getting a chance to bat in the nets. Just by seeing them walk with their pads on, he would say, okay. And they would go, what? No, we've seen you. And he was so right, just by seeing a person walk, he would know how good the cricketer was. And, constantly sharing all his observations. And then after a while, we used to get a little nervous because we didn't get a chance to bat or bowl. So we knew why we were sort of separated. But we used to go to Dilip Sardesai and say, Sir, amala kadi chance hai. And then he would look at you, with that pride in his eyes. Arey Baba, tumi ta certainties. And it used to make us feel so good. And deliberately we'd go to him and, feel really happy. He actually boosted our confidence. Inflated our sort of self-respect and self-esteem. We could see ourselves in his eyes, and it was only pride all the time. So it was brilliant. And for a man, that kind of success, that he cared so much for all these little things, was amazing. Spoke our language as well, spoke the language that, teenagers loved, like you mentioned, Chakku Mohammed. There was Jhanbat Tukaram, which was one of his favorite things. Anybody who stepped out and got out, he hated guys who played casually. Had his own version. I spent 1 month there was a clinic that Dilip Sardesai held for batsmen. 1 month under Dilip Sardesai, and I was a changed player. All of us, we realized the difference between a domestic player and an international player. What was needed to be, a refined, good player. It was all about focus, discipline, not taking any risks, not allowing the bowlers a chance to get you out. I grew tremendously under him, and he is one of the few people in Mumbai that I feel, just propelled my career forward. And for that, I owe eternal gratitude to Dilip Sardesai. But more importantly, I just miss him. I just loved seeing him. Gave you great vibe. Every time you saw him, you felt happy. He got a smile on your face. So lovely man. And there was one Ranji Trophy selection that I sat with him. That's why I loved him and respected him. And he cared about every selection. So there was this name of Atul Ranade that came up. And I said, I want Atul Ranade in my team. I was the captain, India player and all that. So I had a bit of clout as well. And everybody else was okay. And Dilip said, no. Salo to fake to raise. He's a chucker. You can't have him in the team. So I said, sir, he chucks the short ball, the bouncer, not the ball that he pitches up. And that is what I'm going to use, because when he used to pitch the ball up, it used to swing and seam. So that's how I'm going to use. So don't worry. But he wasn't convinced. So he said, no. But right in the minutes there that I am not in favor of this selection. And that was brilliant for me. So we came out and he was still a little upset that Atul Ranade had made it. But I respected him for that. I love people who, have a stand that they'll take and not afraid to say it. And he was that kind of a guy. So, as I said, exceptional person. And I miss him terribly, I'm sure, like the Sardesai family does. Thank you very much for this privilege. To the Sardesai family, this is a real privilege. And had I not got invited ever in this series of lectures, I would have held it against Rajdeep, because at some point of time I was hoping an invitation would come. It's come a little sooner than I expected. So thank you very much. Thank you. Right, now to the formal part. Like my book, this is completely my writing. No inputs, no editing from anyone else, Rajdeep. So you're getting pure stuff. Okay, this is basically about my days with Indian cricket, my journey. Shouldn't last too long, so I hope I've not written too much. So my cricket journey, I need to wear my reading glasses. Right, my cricket journey began in the late 70s at the age of 12. I soon realized how lucky I was to be growing up and playing cricket in Mumbai. For a young 12-year-old with dreams in his eyes of playing for India, the path was well laid in Mumbai. You represented school. Your very first steps into serious cricket were to play in the Harris and Giles Shield. I came to know much later that it's actually Giles Shield and not Giles. We used to call it Giles. It's when I played against Ashley Giles that I came to know it's Giles. So during our time, there was tremendous motivation for school cricketers like me to get a 100 or a 5-wicket haul, for there would be a headline in the sports pages of the newspaper next day saying, Sanjay shines. Those were the kind of headlines used to get, Sanjay shines. Or if a bowler bowled well, Mayank Khandwala deadly. Those kind of headlines. So media platforms were few, so these headlines used to get a lot of attention, and boy, what a high that was. Calls from your friends and family would come flooding in, congratulating you on the effort. You felt like a star. Now, did a 12-year-old kid need any more inducement to keep playing the game, keep chasing his dream? No, sir. With so many media platforms now, I'm not sure a school cricketer's exploits get that much attention, unless, of course, you get a 500 or something like Prithvi Shaw did. After school cricket, there was under 15, under 19, then under 22 important next steps to take you closer to your dream. This system, an age-old one, is what really produces talent of quality rather than academies that are mushrooming all over the place. We used to call it nets. They are now called academies. Manjrekar sir nets. Now it's whatever academy. Again, growing up in Mumbai was a blessing because there were all these marvelous people like Dilip Sardesai, ex-test stalwarts around, even on the Maidans, at matches, at selection trials, to boost your confidence and fuel your ambitions further. I remember at one stage Mr. Sardesai being unhappy with me getting out in my 30s and not getting hundreds. So my good friend Subhash Shirsagar took it upon himself to remind me of that. So when I used to get out in the 30s and 40s, he would say, I am not the believe in the 30 and the 40, I am the believe in the 100. So this was about Mumbai cricket, and it always wanted hundreds from its batsmen. So you got the right advice at the right time from the right people. It was all about what you needed to do to succeed at the highest level. For Mumbaiites, it was always about doing well at the highest level, not Ranji level, isn't it? Always at the India level. A small town boy would not have these advantages that we had. At a very impressionable age, a wide-eyed young cricketer would get a chance to share a dressing room with current superstars of Indian cricket. Can you imagine how I must have felt when my idol Sunil Gavaskar was in the same dressing room as me while playing for Dadar Union at the age of 15? I watched his every move during the day. My eyes were glued onto him as he went about his business. He must have found me quite creepy, had he noticed. Anyway, the next big step was Ranji cricket, and again the wonderful seniors like Sandeep Patil came to the fore to guide you during an actual cricket match. The tips that you receive while you're on the field from another senior are priceless. Wasim and Waqar got a heavy dose of this from the current Prime Minister of Pakistan. It was one important reason for their eventual greatness, their view, not mine. Then the 12-year-old's dream finally came to fruition. I was playing for India. This was late 80s, post-Gavaskar era. It remains my regret that this wasn't such a happy chapter in my cricket life, not so much because of how my own career panned out, but because of the climate within the team at the time. When I entered the Indian team dressing room, I discovered there was a divide in the team, like a wall in between two groups of players. There were two teams within one. Thankfully, by the end of my India career, these lines were blurred. The wall came down eventually, and with it also came an improvement of Team India's performance. Team India is a new terminology. It's not the Indian cricket team anymore, it's Team India, so I'm keeping up with the times. So during my time in the Indian team, it was still very much an individual sport, where a batsman, if he got 100 in the first test of an overseas series, felt like his job for the series was done. 100 or a 5-wicket haul in Australia, England or West Indies was a big thing. It would suffice a player for the entire series. Ambitions then were low, and they were even lower for the team, especially when abroad. It was all about individual glory, and if the team won in the process, great. Winning was incidental, while every player went about their own business. Indian players were still stars and big brands back home, even if the team lost. So there was real motivation to carry on, or to care only about your own performance. Be a little selfish, so to say. It was also a time when pace and bounce was a real issue in Indian cricket. When the opposition had 4 fast bowlers, it was heartbreaking to see players avoiding such challenges with cunning maneuvers. When West Indies came to town, long-term injuries suddenly surfaced amongst players. This was the 90s, where in the same era, there was Pakistan, our neighboring team, led by Imran Khan, that set the bar really high. My entire test career was about me wishing that my Indian team was more like the Pakistan team. The Pakistan team was strong then. When a home series against New Zealand was announced, Imran, their captain, made his own announcement that this was a waste of time. Pakistan should be touring West Indies and taking on tougher challenges than playing against an ordinary New Zealand at home. That is what Imran said. He really thought his team could beat West Indies, and he wanted that opportunity. So here was a team's captain keen to play against West Indies, while in India we were finding ways to avoid them. This was, of course, Pakistan of old. The new Pakistan is a bit like old India. I'm talking purely cricket here, so no controversies. To make matters worse, my last years as India cricketer was spent in the dark cloud of match fixing. I saw my fellow players get bans, and after that there was an understandable nagging suspicion about Indian cricket and the integrity of the team. This is when Dada, Maharaj, arrived. I used to call Sourav Ganguly Maharaj. And with him in tow was India's first foreign coach, John Wright. I remember Sourav giving an interview, I think to Rajdeep, and even talk about match fixing in that year, 2000, on one of his shows. A brave thing to do. There was no precedent before this. Most influential players preferred to stay mute on sensitive matters. Sourav guaranteed a clean Indian team, and we trusted him. Post 2000, in the leadership of Ganguly and a foreign coach, a much brighter phase of Indian cricket began. India played the way I'd wished throughout my playing career. They competed better overseas, plus they had batsmen who were not wary of the short ball anymore. Viru, Rahul, Sachin, VVS, all of them had no issue with pace and bounce, and thus we started seeing some fight from the Indians away from India. Meanwhile, India also was becoming a very good one-day team, that too in all conditions. Big sponsorships started coming into Indian cricket, and the critical moment for me was the 2003 World Cup in South Africa, when big corporates like Pepsi invested in the Indian cricket team. India reached the finals of that World Cup in South Africa. It was a very impressive showing by India, considering that it was overseas and the big money stayed parked in Indian cricket. India still wasn't winning enough, though. In that final of the 2003 World Cup, you could still see the little signs of insecurities when India opted to bowl first rather than bat first against the likes of McGrath and Lee. That proved to be a costly mistake in the finals. Under Sourav Ganguly, Indian cricket's image became squeaky clean. Also, India played more like a team, but it was still not winning enough for a country that had everything going for them now. This started to change when Dhoni came in. Dhoni got rid of anxiety, a deep-rooted emotion that afflicted India in close matches on a big stage. Dhoni brought calmness into Indian cricket. Under Dhoni, India started winning tight games and critically started chasing better, with the captain himself leading by example. Now India under Dhoni was a formidable one-day team, formidable in all conditions, not just at home, but the great run did culminate at home with that World Cup win in 2011. This for me was India's greatest triumph, in the sense that India was playing in front of the home crowd, and with it comes the heavy burden of expectation. Because they were playing at home, fans expected them to win. Having been a part of the 1996 World Cup team, I had a personal experience of how tough this can be. Dhoni's incredible calmness brushed off on the others as he led the way for this great victory. He didn't have a very good bowling attack like we have now. India won the 2011 World Cup despite its bowling. For me, the 1983 World Cup win was the most significant, while 2011 was the most impressive. As I mentioned earlier, one thing decisively changed under Dhoni. India started chasing better. No more was this Indian team panicking in a run chase like we used to. 1992 Brisbane game, India-Australia. Rajdeep, do you remember that? When we were chasing and we just panicked. Venkatpati Raju celebrating with the ball, on the boundary, and somebody dropped it and we lost by a run. So that didn't happen anymore. Unlike earlier, basically temperamentally too, the Indian team was getting better. Nerves started to disappear. Unlike earlier, this team was now holding its head high even on foreign lands. Their performance may not have skyrocketed with it, but there was more self-belief within the team even when it travelled. We were also now looking at a new Indian generation that had grown up in a more secure and liberal environment. The changing landscape of the country started reflecting in the attitude and approach of the India players. They didn't walk into an overseas encounter feeling inferior. India was now a better all-round team. It was looking fitter on the field. Their fast bowlers were bowling quicker. The batsmen weren't sitting ducks against pace, and they ran superbly between the wickets. Now the running between the wicket is a slightly unacknowledged and undervalued improvement in Indian cricket. Under Dhoni, this aspect of the game got a lot of importance and attention. Like Virat, he too believed that running hard between the wickets was the lifeline of any innings. The rare occasions I've seen Dhoni lose his cool has always been when his partner didn't respond to his call for that extra run. Never have I seen him lose his cool otherwise. India's white ball cricket was going in the right direction, but somehow the bane of the 90s, the overseas issues in test matches, remained. Somehow Indian cricket has not been able to resolve this. A much weakened Pakistan still has a better record than India in overseas test matches. India have just come back from a 4-1 defeat in an overseas series. Yes, the scoreline is not indicative of how the actual contest was, but still, it's another overseas loss for India to endure. Interestingly, it was the batting that let India down this time. The bowlers kept getting India back in the match. And the batsmen kept letting those chances slip. It wasn't temperament this time that was letting these batsmen down in South Africa as well as in England. It was purely a technical problem, specifically defensive technique. It was simple to see what was going wrong. The batsmen were not leaving enough balls outside the off stump, nor were they defending close to the body with a still bat. There's a tendency to just push even when defending, so no still bat. Now this is the easy part. It's easy to spot such faults, but how do you rectify it? Now that's where it gets complicated. Because this is now more a cultural thing, and it's damn difficult to change cultures, as we know. Today's test cricket is played in front of empty stands and IPL in front of a frenzied crowd of 50,000 plus, millions watching on TV. And guess what? It pays better too. In fact, a lot better. So we have a reverse scenario now in the 90s. It's about playing the IPL at all cost. Player injuries now surface only before and after the IPL. IPL offers you fame as well as money. Now who will say no to this? Also, test cricket is just too goddamn hard. So it's a no wonder that many are choosing T20 leagues over test matches. Playing for the country and all that, it's an emotion that one feels only when it's an ICC event now. There is such random, meaningless country versus country cricket going on that playing for the country is not that big a deal anymore. nor a matter of great pride like it used to be when matches were fewer. Also, I cringe a bit when players talk about doing it for the nation and stuff when they're actually playing sport. So more and more players are training themselves to become good white ball players. When we were growing up, our mind space was occupied by only the long format game. We trained for it day in, day out, practiced leaving balls outside the off stump, and the coach behind shrieked in delight saying, "Well left." And we felt very proud for having left a ball alone. No shot offered. And we felt very good about ourselves. This aspect of batting is hardly seen nor even needed in white ball cricket. I wonder how many balls were left alone in all the editions of the IPL so far. Anybody keeping count? I'm guessing about 12. Quality of Test cricket's main elements / skills like defensive batting, bowling to get a batsman out while he's defending, and slip catching are bound to go down with the popularity of Test cricket. Why train so hard for something that only a few people watch and does not pay as much? A good analogy of this is pure classical singing. It's the test match of singing. The world is ever changing, and with it the tastes of people. This is what we call natural forces coming into play, and there is nothing anyone can do to change that. But try we must. For if not for Test cricket, how do we know who are the men from the boys? It is here I feel Test cricket is so fortunate that today's cricket's biggest brand, Virat Kohli, loves Test cricket and puts his heart and soul into it. To my eyes, he looks most driven when he's playing Test match cricket. Don't get fooled by the crowds you see in England for Test matches. That's an aberration. England loves its heritage. They like holding on to the old. Royalty, for example. They're still so excited by it in the 21st century. So these guys are very unique in their tastes and choices. I travel the cricketing world and see cricket-loving countries struggle to draw crowds for Test matches. But we can and have to clutch at straws to keep Test cricket alive. Through social media, etc., we see a lot of young cricket fans follow Test cricket. They understand and value the uniqueness of its unpredictable script that other formats can never match. And yes, Test match performances and results are remembered for a longer time and resonate much more than an IPL 50 which is forgotten 48 hours later. It's not that there is zero interest in Test cricket, just that people can't come to the stadium to watch cricket, or for that matter watch on TV. That's because we are, I use the word cocky, in the sense that we have kept the timings of Test matches such that it's people's working hours. Gone are the days when people used to bunk office and fill up every seat at the Eden Gardens. It's time to be humble and offer Test cricket to the fans as per their convenience. The only way to get more people to watch Test cricket, increase its viewership, its popularity, and thereby its quality, is day-night Test matches. And that brings me to the final stretch of this lecture about taking the bull by its horns. Why aren't we playing more day-night Test matches when it's a no-brainer that it will draw more viewership? An offer recently was rejected by India because the players are wary of it, wary of the pink ball, the dew factor, etc. I've always believed conditions are never unfair if it's the same for both sides. Who wouldn't know this better than Mumbai cricketers sitting here who played in the Kanga League, when along with the ball you sometimes had to handle the muck that came flying with it. So what's basically happening is that we want to give perfect conditions for the players to play in, even if it means no one is watching. There was a time when players, at least India players, were at the mercy of the BCCI. The relationship between players and the board was uneasy for a long time. Remember the clashes over payment of salaries, etc. 1989, the unauthorized US trip. So the players and BCCI were always at loggerheads. Thank God all that is in the past. But we must be careful to not go the other extreme and try and keep players happy come what may, or at the cost of the game. Take the bull by the horns. I say, nobody seems to be doing that anymore. Have you noticed that nobody wants to take the bull by the horns? Do what's best for the game, for its long-term health, and make the players join. Even if they are reluctant, they will thank us later. As player 2, As player, I too had a much narrower vision of the game than I have now. While you're at it, that is taking the bull by the horns, here is another one. For God's sake, do something about the over rates. The amount of milling around that goes on the cricket field is not funny. No way will this sport find appeal or connect with the youth of today when most of the time they're seeing players walking and standing and having drinks and thus having a devastating effect on the over rates. Yes, that's my bugbear these days, over rates. There was a time when 19 overs were bowled in an hour. Now it's down to 12. Just 3 days back, the Asia Cup final match went 40 minutes overtime. 40 minutes overtime. I say, how dare we take people's time for granted like this? We now have an extra 30 minutes for a fielding side to bowl its quota of 90 overs for the day in test matches because they find it difficult to do it in the stipulated time. And if they're still unable to do it in the extra 30 minutes, we say, okay, let it be. It's like a tuition teacher who wants to keep his job tutoring a rich kid with homework. Okay, if you can't do it, then. So essentially what happens is that the paying public is sitting an extra 30 minutes and still haven't got the 90 overs in the day they came to watch. Someday, I'm just afraid they may ask for a refund for not getting what they were promised. The slow over rates, I'm afraid, is entirely to do with the players being allowed to have their way. Maybe we could have a tennis-like system where they have a timer in between games when players take their little break. In cricket, it can be in between overs where the captain is prodded to start the next over and penalized if there is a delay. Whatever works, really, we must make the game move on faster to stay relevant in today's world when people are eating fast food and seeking faster downloads. Basically, officials need to get a little more officious. And yes, strict. Not as strict as the school cricket umpire that we had, Radip, the stone-faced dictatorial kind. I used to think only a whip in their hands was missing. Not those kind. The fact is there is just too much leniency given to players these days. Hydration is the new thing. So you have players taking drinks in every little pause the game has. When there is a review, drinks are taken. Wicket falls, drinks are taken. I've seen an incoming batsman have a quick drink himself when his partner is having one at that time. Wicket falls in the first over of the day, substitutes rush in with drinks for the fielding team. Official drinks break is taken just after everyone has had a drink few minutes back during a review. Happens, trust me. And I'm sort of pulling my hair in the commentary box. But on air, I'm politically correct a little bit. Today is my chance to vent. These days, I'm worried that a player may actually get sick. Sorry, I'll do that again. These days, I'm worried that a player may get sick because of excessive hydration. That is my worry. Too much water. I seriously wonder if players today know the feeling of playing while being thirsty. I know keeping your water levels high is important, but I also know that a cheetah runs the quickest and fastest when it's thirsty and hungry. I watch a lot of wildlife. I guess what I'm saying is that cricket is not a fast-growing sport like, say, golf. It's facing increased competition from other sports that vibe better with today's sports lovers. And that's slowly happening in India too, mind you. I'm told that stores are selling a lot more badminton rackets and stuff than cricket stuff, which is what Rahul Dravid said in one of his lectures. So it's vital that we are on the ball, keeping a close watch on how cricket is being consumed by the market and react accordingly. If cricket has to thrive, the custodians in the game should be pragmatists and not romantics. Because romantics, stay with the old and sometimes it's not good for the game. Got to be pragmatists more than romantics. And finally, just the final thought, if there's one simple way to achieve that there's long-term good health and vibrancy of the game, just put the cricket fan above all, and we may just be okay. Thank you.